the LaxFactor podcast. What is up, college lacrosse fans? You are watching episode 192 of the LaxFactor Lacrosse podcast. I am your host, Ted Hoost, and today, once again, as always, on the Sunday recap show, we are going to talk about a boatload of lacrosse. We're going to talk about Syracuse and Virginia, Georgetown, Notre Dame, High Point and Navy, Penn and Duke, Richmond, Towson, Maryland, Cornell, and we're going to get into a bunch of other games beyond that. One I was surprised about, Penn State and Yale. Before I get into it, as always, be sure to like, subscribe, or if you're just an audio listener, share the crap out of the podcast with your friends. And as always, you can go to LaxFactor.com. Support us that way. We have our new Wings lacrosse shorts out. They are not a 7 or a 5-inch inseam. These are the normal, sane human being shorts that people like to wear, or that my generation at least likes to wear, and the generations after me up until you serial killers all started showing your legs off like crazy. So you can go to LaxFactor.com, get a pair of these to support us. We also have t-shirts and hats and all sorts of other crap as well. So I am done rambling. Let's get into the very first game of the day that I watched, and it was a sad day for me and for the Syracuse faithful, as Petey LaSalla ended up getting revenge over Phaup and Syracuse. Once again, Cuse played a top 2 team, and once again, they put themselves in a huge hole prior to staging some sort of comeback to make things respectable. In this case, it didn't remain respectable. Virginia, the wheels came off very quickly after Syracuse got within 3 goals, so we'll talk about that a little bit. You know, the main thing we got to talk about is that it's pretty much an official holiday now in Charlottesville, Virginia, Petey LaSalla Revenge Day. Petey fucking LaSalla, for those of you that are in the know, he won 19 of 28 draws, had 5 ground balls and a goal. He got waxed by Phaup last year in both meetings, but worked on his counter moves, they were saying in the broadcast, and it showed because he won out like crazy. LaSalla had a huge game, totally took Syracuse's chances away from them by just winning draw after draw after draw. He got a lot of help on the wing from Danny Parker. Parker picked up 5 ground balls in the game, and he actually was a big factor in terms of doing battle on those wings and helping LaSalla win additional faceoffs that he didn't win the clamp all the time on. The Virginia defense, they apparently watched how Maryland ended up playing Syracuse, because in terms of the aggressiveness all over the field, now that is Virginia's style anyway, but they pressed all over the place. Once again, it flustered Syracuse early. They couldn't get anything done between losing faceoffs and then getting pressed on defense. Syracuse turned the ball over a bunch. Kastner looked very good and was disruptive for the Virginia defense. He ended up having 4 caused turnovers. Nunes looked excellent in cage, winning the goal battle by quite a bit. 15 saves in this game for a 57.7% save percentage. I got to figure out a better way to say that. I don't like saying percent and percentage right after. Connor Shellenberger, as always, he was too much to handle in all ways. 3 goals, 4 helpers, 2 ground balls, and only 2 turnovers in the game. Scored a mid-range shot, sniped a corner. It was filthy. Had a couple of dodges that he scored on. He scored one dodging from the corner into the middle of the field on the run. That was one of the daggers that really just buried any shot Syracuse had of coming back. Scored off a broken play. The dude, he did a little bit of everything overall. So let's go in here and we look at the team stats. Overall, Syracuse got more shots, especially over the course of that run. Shots on goal, Virginia did a little bit better of a job actually hitting the cage. Saves, the goalie battle, as I said, was won by Nunes. The backup came in and did get a single save here at some point. Turnovers, Virginia played fast and loose, very aggressive. You can see here over the course of the 4th quarter, they turned the ball over 11 times, but it was inopportune. It was that first quarter right here where you see Syracuse turn the ball over 6 times. That was the painful part of that game, and that's, where Syracuse let Virginia just jump out to a big lead to start the game. Virginia's ride, I should say, flummoxed Syracuse, forcing a few turnovers here, almost a handful of turnovers, 4 of them off the clearing game. Virginia cleared the ball incredibly well. A lot of those were because they just got the ball. It was a save turned into an easy clear getting up the field. They got up the field quickly. Syracuse wasn't able to really set up in rides, so that was fairly brutal for the Orange. Ground balls, Virginia scrapped a little bit more, and they were physical, so they beat Syracuse on that stretch. And like we said, 21-11 face-off and possession disparity, so that was pretty rough. Both teams played like shit in the extra man, so that one didn't factor. In terms of our individual stats, for Syracuse, Mikey Berkman, 2-2, Griffin Cook, 3-0, but as I say that, Griffin Cook ends up 3-0. Syracuse had gotten to within 12-9. Cook was playing well. I was kind of pumped for him, and then he had a total boneheaded play. He throws a very ill-advised BTB into the middle of the field. Didn't even come close to anyone. I don't know what he was thinking. Ball goes back the other way. Virginia gets a quick goal off of it to make the score 13-9, and then it went 14-9, and then it went 15-9 after that. So that was where the wheels came off. So I felt like that play right there took the wind out of Syracuse's sails completely, and that was all she wrote. I'm not putting the loss on Cook, but just when he starts to play well and has a really good game, 3 goals. I dare say that may be the most he's had in like 2 years or more. I don't know if he's ever had a hat trick before. Off just 4 shots, too. Looked good. Then that boneheaded play hurt them pretty bad. Curry 1-2, Quinn 2-1. So Syracuse kind of got depth in scoring a little bit. The big one right here, though, is Tucker Dordevic. 8 shots, 1 goal on the day. Missed the cage a bunch. Put a couple of shots into the stick of Nunes, and that ends up being the game here. As we look down at Virginia's stats, Connor Shellenberger 3-4 off 7 shots. Dude had a heck of a day here. Matt Moore, once again, volume shooter, 12 shots, only 3 goals, but they were good goals, and Matt Moore's just a sniper, future pro, PLL pro. Xander Dixon, once again, continued to look really good and play a key role for Virginia, 1-2. And then you get some Jack Simmons, Peyton Cormier with a hat trick, Griffin Schutz with a hat trick. Man, Griffin Schutz is a big boy. Very good midfielder. I believe he is a freshman. And Grayson Saladay. I mean, you see Virginia, the depth in scoring was pretty pronounced for Virginia overall. And as we come down into the save here, Bobby Gavin, 20 goals against, 12 saves. Let me say, I don't put that on Gavin. It was pretty brutal. Virginia had a ton of really good looks. Even the goal that Shellenberger scored later in the game, I think it was the 15th goal to go up 15-9. Even that one, Gavin got on it. It was Syracuse defense did not have their best day overall. A lot of, once again, like in the Maryland game, a lot of odd transition goals, a lot of broken play situation goals, failed clear goals. So Gavin was put in a bad spot, but Nunes looked excellent all game long. Those 15 saves against just 11 goals against. He wins that battle totally. And then, like I said, as we look at the face-off disparity here, Petey LaSalla, 19 of 28, 5 GBs, 3 shots. One of them went on goal, and he scored it. He did get leveled when he took that shot or whatnot, but Petey LaSalla had a hell of a day. So congrats to Virginia. They were the better team by far. They looked like the number 1 team in the country here in this game. I had said on the Syracuse radio show last week that I thought Maryland was the best team in the country. I'm not so sure about that now. The way that Virginia looked against Syracuse, they played a full 60 minutes. That was Virginia's problem thus far, was defensively they were playing a little odd and letting things up where I didn't think they should or I didn't think they would. And offensively, they were a little slow to start in a couple of games against Towson, against Air Force, against High Point. So Virginia hadn't put together a full game yet, and they put together a full game. Yes, Syracuse did battle back and get to within 12-9, but it is Syracuse, and they tend to do that. But they put them away after that and then ran away with it. So hell of a job by Virginia. All right, let's get into the next one. This, too, was an excellent game. Georgetown and Notre Dame. Georgetown, they jump out to an 11-2 lead in this one, and I was watching it early and ended up turning it off, but they jump out to an 11-2 lead prior to Notre Dame scoring 8 straight goals and getting things back to 11-10. And Georgetown early, defensively, very stout, didn't give Georgetown much of anything. McElroy and Cage looked incredible for Georgetown early on, and they just kept scoring goals. I was surprised at the Georgetown step-down shooters. They were just pretty much letting it rip from all over the field, and it was working for them. Liam Entenmann, an incredibly good goalie, but he was giving up some shots from mid-range, from deep, that he normally wouldn't give up. And then the Dodgers for Georgetown, they were getting themselves close enough that they had some doorstep goals as well. So they get out to that 11-2 lead. I actually turned the game off and I go watch a different game. I forget what I ended up watching after that. And then all of a sudden it's like, holy crap, it's 11-8. I turned the game back on. sure as crap, Notre Dame, they score 8 straight goals to get things back to 11-10 after scoring the first goal in the fourth quarter. I think it was about like 14 minutes and change, or 11 minutes and change is what it was in the fourth they scored. So Owen McElroy, the key here was over the course of that fourth quarter, after Notre Dame had staged that comeback and got back to within 11-10, Owen McElroy made 11 of his 24 saves on the day over that fourth quarter, and that saved Georgetown's ass from having to endure an Irish comeback. It would have been a wild comeback if the Irish could have come back and won that game, but Owen McElroy stood on his head for the Hoyas. Now, my personal favorite, Connor Moran, former Irish midfielder turned Hoya attackman. And when I was doing a segment yesterday, a new segment that we're going to do called Ballin' Out, I covered his goal here where he stuck a filthy righty backhand from X, dodging up the left side with perfect defense. Notre Dame played excellent defense on that entire possession. The ball goes to X with 5 seconds left on the shot clock. Georgetown's within 2 goals at this point late in the game. And Moran gets the ball, dodges up the left side with his right hand, and just backhands it from very little angle between Entenmann, his former teammate's legs, with just 2 seconds left on that shot clock. And that was the dagger that Georgetown needed to stop all Notre Dame momentum overall. The Georgetown defense, they played admirably over the first and fourth quarters, and they played well enough in the middle of the game to thwart Notre Dame's comeback. Even Will Bowen got in on the offense, thirst-trapping long pole groupies by sticking a fairly nasty shot from the crease before getting laid out. That gave Georgetown the 11-2 lead. Morrison Meyer went on a tear for the Irish to start the third quarter, netting a natural hat trick over a 5-minute and 1 second span. My daughter told me I should shave that 1 second off, but facts are facts, man. And it was 5 minutes and 1 second span. That got things back to 11-7. And that got the Notre Dame bench hyped. You could see Notre Dame had all the momentum. In the Syracuse game, it was similar, but they weren't able to complete the comeback and get within a goal. Notre Dame was able to do that. Dobson and Kavanaugh. Dobson is just a monster midfielder. Dobson and Kavanaugh both tallied goals to bring Notre Dame back to within 11-9, and then Meyer scored again to get them within a goal with 11:46 left to play in the game. And then after that, Georgetown put the Irish on lock. No more soda bread and Irish stew for you, is what the Georgetown defense and Owen McElroy said. And the Irish end up hungry, losing the game 16-11. As we get into the box score here and we look at the team stats, you see Notre Dame beat them in shots. Notre Dame beat them in shots on cage, but once again, McElroy played excellent. The saves here, the save disparity, 24-9, which is pretty incredible. Turnovers, Georgetown turned the ball over more. Clears, Notre Dame cleared the ball better. Ground balls, Notre Dame won that battle. Notre Dame won this game in every statistical category, but as you see when you win a 16-11 game and your goalie has, 24 saves on the day, you're going to end up winning the game here. 24 saves. You're going to end up winning that game. So credit to McElroy for standing on his head for the Irish, because you could see here everything other than face-off. So between the face-off battle and the goalie battle, Georgetown ends up winning this game. If we get into the individual stats, Declan McDermott, 4-1 for Gtown off 8 shots. Very good game. No turnovers. Alex Trippy, North Carolina transfer. Once again, you see the trend here. Transfers playing huge roles for big teams that are winning big games. Trippy goes 1-3 off 1 shot. 2 turnovers for Trippy, but he dodged the ball well. He controlled the ball well. Connor Moran, like I said, 3-1. Dylan Watson, 2-1. Graham Bundy Jr., 2-0. An excellent outing offensively right down the stat book here for Notre Dame or for Georgetown. And then at the faceoff dot, James Riley dominated the faceoff dot. That was key. Last year, Notre Dame would have dominated the faceoff dot against Georgetown with their 2-headed monster that they had. This year, not so. Riley's been playing well. He goes 21 of 29, and that is all she wrote. As we get in here, Morrison Meyer, 4 goals off 7 shots. He looked incredible. Pat Kavanaugh, 1-2. Limited a little bit. Eric Dobson, the big boy, 2-0. Chris Kavanaugh, 2-0. So Notre Dame, they got some production, just not enough against this very stout Georgetown defense. And then, as we said in the cage here, you look at this. Entenmann, not his usual self, but Georgetown just, when you're playing as good as Georgetown is offensively, apparently that turns into your offense can play aggressive and just like animals all over the field, because you know that you can take a lot of chances and your defense is going to be good enough to get stops and get you the ball back and continue to give you more chances, especially when you're winning faceoffs. So big day here for McElroy. 24 saves versus just 11 goals against. Just, former, I think he was the goalie of the year last year. Looks like he's going to be on pace to do that again. So let's get out of that one. The next one I want to talk about here, High Point and Navy. So this one went back and forth quite a bit over the course of the game. And the story of the day here, as we look at it, is Asher Nolting. He scores here to make it 2-1 in favor of Navy. And Navy kind of built themselves up a lead here, up to 4-2. Nolting got them back to within 4-2 with 5:12 left in the first. But Navy, once again, 6-2 Navy, 6-3 Navy, 6-4, 7-4. It kind of, Navy kept pace. Every time High Point would answer, Navy would have an answer back to try to keep this lead. And that happened right up until Michael Ippolito. Michael Ippolito. Boom. Assisted by Jack Sawyer. He ties it up 9-9. Once again, Navy answers. Once again, High Point answers here. And you see here, Ippolito, he had a hell of a game here for High Point. And then for the first lead of the game, off a Nick Rizzo goal, unassisted, High Point takes the lead 12-11. And then Navy ties it. High Point takes the lead off a Braden Maia goal, his Asher Nolting's favorite white boy.
There he is! There's my favorite white boy!
And when I play the highlight here, I hope you already heard it. I think is you're already going to have heard that the little snippet. You're my favorite white boy. I love that. I've been messing around watching TikTok too much, and I figured I had to do that for this one. But you see, Maia gives them the lead back. Dane Swanson scores an unassisted goal on the crease doorstep to tie things back up again before, once again, Michael Ippolito scores the final goal of the game, 4:17 left in the fourth, to give High Point the win. Now, huge day here for Asher Nolting. If we look at it here, 3-5 for Nolting off 6 shots with 4 turnovers. But what I had said all along was that Asher Nolting was going to be able to get himself back to that 90, 100-point total, back to being a potential Tewaaraton finalist. If not back, but he could be a potential Tewaaraton finalist if he could just clean up the turnovers. And thus far this year, he's played like the super senior that I thought that he would be, and he's cleaned the turnovers up. When you put up 8 points, including some of the key assists that he had in this game, off just 6 shots, you'll take those 4 turnovers as much as he carries the ball. You see here, Ippolito, 4 goals off 5 shots, insanely productive. Braden Maia, 2-0. Jackson Clay, 2-0. So the supporting cast for High Point, they're getting it done. Asher Nolting needed some help, and there's a lot of finishers on this team. Both the first and second midline, they get out there and they scrap and they play decent lacrosse. So that was definitely a good sign and good things for High Point. And then if we look at Navy here, Henry Tolker, he goes for 4 points, 3-1. Nick Cole, 0-4. Max Hewitt, 3-1. So they filled it out too. It was an excellent game overall, though, especially with Navy controlling most of it, High Point staying focused, staying patient, and eventually getting back into the game. And Parker Green here, 8 saves, 13 goals against, and then 10 saves. So the goalies, they didn't light the world on fire or anything like that. Navy did have a 2-headed monster at the faceoff dot that allowed them to win 18 of 30. Jacob Giroux, he goes 11 of 16. Nate Hammond goes 7 of 14. So that helped keep Navy in it. That helped Navy control the game for most of it up until High Point took their heads out of their butts and put up a few goals, took the lead, and then just kept battling until they end up with the 1-goal victory. Done with that one. Next up here, Duke and Penn. And Duke, they get death in OT thanks to Penn's Jack Schultz. Now, Joe Robertson has been known as kind of a end-of-game killer, team killer here, and he's been one of the most clutch players in college lacrosse, posting a number of game-winning goals over the last handful of seasons, because it seems like Robertson's been playing easily for 8 years worth of college lacrosse. That's kind of a trend here thanks to COVID. and guys that have been injured as well, because Robertson dealt with, I believe, a year-ending injury, in 2020? I think it was actually the COVID season he had a year-ending injury. But it was his high school teammate, Jack Schultz, that went all serial killer versus the Blue Devils, delivering a very nonchalant game winner based on what I thought, and giving Duke sudden death. So Penn ends up winning this game by a goal in sudden death on Long Island. Hell of a game overall. And as we kind of get into the stats here, one thing, I'm going to do Duke's statistics first, was Nikai Montgomery. What I saw was that Penn took their best LSM, and I didn't see the game myself. I haven't even seen highlights of this yet, but I did read about it a little bit. And Penn took their number one LSM, gave him a shorty, and had him D-up Nikai Montgomery. And they made that sound like that was a good thing. It didn't look like it was a very good thing, because Montgomery ends up with 11 shots, 4 and 2, 4 goals, 2 helpers off those 11 shots. Nikai Montgomery had a hell of a game. Brendan O'Neill, 2-1. McAdory, 2-0. Lully, after having a huge game against, last week here, ends up just 1-1 against his former team. So that's not enough. Duke just didn't get the scoring out of Dyson Williams that they needed, and out of Brendan O'Neill that they needed to try to win this game. Penn played excellent defense all over the field. As we look at the Penn stats here, Gillen Gergar, I forgot, Gerger, I don't know, man. I literally listened to it on Twitter to hear a clip so that I could actually figure out how to pronounce his name properly, because I know I always butcher it, and I call him Gergar, and I'm pretty sure it's not that. Anyway, he goes for 6 goals. Just absolutely bonkers day for him. 13 shots, only 2 turnovers. You'll take that all day. James Shipley, 3-1. Sam Handley, 1-2. I want to see Handley put up some more points, but hey, that's good enough in a win against Duke. And then the game winner here, Jack Schultz, Robertson's former teammate, he ends up scoring the game winner off his only shot of the game. So that was pretty awesome. One thing to note here is that Duke beat Penn in almost every category. You see, they got a lot more shots, but in terms of shots on cage, it was pretty even. Actually dead even, 24 up in terms of putting the shots on goal. That's always going to be key. Every shot you take, if it doesn't hit the cage, there's no chance that it goes in. Saves, Penn did edge Duke out in the save category a little bit. In terms of turnovers, Duke had a few more turnovers than Penn did. In terms of clears, both cleared the ball fairly well. You can see here Duke failed on 4 of them, Penn on 2. But relationally, that's pretty even. Duke smoked them on ground balls. Duke beat them 17-12 on faceoffs. Both teams, Penn had a lot more man-up opportunities than Duke didn't capitalize off of them. And then as we kind of get into the faceoff battle here, that was something I didn't look at. Penn ends up winning 12 of 29. Naso gets the better of them, winning 17 of 29, but it doesn't matter because Penn just scrapped, played solid defense, got stops where they needed to, and then the goalie battle here, Birkinshaw, Virginia transfer, not a COVID transfer, but a Virginia transfer from a while ago. He ends up with 11 saves, 13 goals against, and Mike Adler. Neither goalie had a great game, 10 saves, 14 goals against. So that's the game, but a hell of a game. Nonetheless, another overtime game. There was a bunch of overtime games. Another one we're about to talk about next, Richmond and Towson. And as we look at this one here, game winner scored by Ryan Dunn, unassisted with, with 16 seconds left in is that the third overtime? Was this a 3 overtime game here? 2 overtime game. So we had, third, yeah. So he scores a goal with 16 seconds left in the third overtime to win this game for Richmond. And actually, if we look at this, once again, I had this game on. Maybe I didn't. I can't remember. But I remember looking at the score thinking 9-1. Well, that game's over. Apparently, Towson's much better than we had thought. Like I said, I assumed Towson was improved. They've been playing a little bit better this year, holding a little bit tighter against some quality teams, and up 9-1 in this one. I thought Richmond was done, but as we saw a lot in this weekend, a team would get a big lead, and then the other teams were battling back. 9-2, 9-3, 9-4, 9-5. Oh, Towson answers 10-5. You'd think wind out of sails. It's over. Nope. 10-6, 10-7, 10-8 after Ryan Lanchberry scores, and then 11-8, 11-9, 11-10. And you can see Towson just kept answering. They held the lead here up until Richmond took their first lead of the game, and with 9:48 left in the fourth quarter by Will Tazewell. He scores unassisted, and then Towson ties it. Richmond takes the lead. Towson ties it. With 1 second left in the game, a Nick DeMeo goal with 1 second left. Towson ties this game up, forces overtime, and then Ryan Dunn in the third overtime scores the game winner. That's a hell of a game. And like I said, I didn't watch that, but, sue me, but that's crazy. As we look at the individual stats here, if we look at Richmond's points here, Lance Madonna had a hell of a game. He was 6-1. Luke Frankeny, 4-1. Ryan Lanchberry, 1-3. I mean, that's all of these guys. You look down this roster, they got contributions from everyone. They took care of the ball fairly well, especially Madonna here. 12 shots, 6 goals. And let's see here. Faceoffs were split pretty evenly, but Nick DeMeo for Towson goes 6-2. Luke Schilling goes 1-4. James Evanzado goes 3-2. So Towson, they played well. Valiant effort by them. They can't be, they're going to be disappointed because I think it's always worse for the team that loses in overtime than it is good for the team that wins in overtime. But what are you going to do here? Goalkeeping, 21 saves for Richmond's Craven Devon in cage. That's a hell of a game. And then 14 saves out of Shane Brennan. So he wins the Devon Craven. I'm getting used to reading these backwards, and when we come down to the goalies, and his name is normal. So Devon Craven, 21 saves. He wins the goalie battle. They end up winning the game. And what a hell of a game it was. Next up, Maryland and Princeton. We had gotten into it a little bit in the Facebook lacrosse forum where we were talking about, I was saying I thought Maryland would win this game 15, I figured they'd win by 5+ goals, and I wouldn't have been surprised if they won this game by 10. Princeton ends up holding pretty tight, and as we kind of go through, the story of the game first for Princeton was Eric Peters in cage for the Tigers. He posts 19 saves to help keep Princeton within reach most of this game, and without his effort, this game ends up being much more spread out, probably a 10-goal win or more by Maryland. Maryland beat Princeton in almost every statistical category, as you're going to see here when I rip through and show it, and by a large margin at that. But Peters came up with just timely save after timely save to make sure that every time Maryland answered and got, that 2-3 goal lead back, he'd get a stop, and Princeton was able to kind of claw back and keep it close. But as it played out, Maryland, they go up 2-0, never trailed after 2-0, and they never trailed after that. Princeton, they'd have an answer for every single Maryland run, but by the end, it was truly as slow of a burn as you could have to get to a 5-goal victory over time here. And if you're back to looking at this, you see it was 2-1, 3-1. Then it was 4-2, back to 5-2, 5-3, 5-4. They got back within a goal here with Alexander Vardaro scoring, and then 6-4, 7-4, 8-4. But nope, they have an answer again, 8-5, 8-6. So that you could see they just kind of kept chipping back, but slowly but surely the lead then gets to 4 again, back to 4, stays at 4. Or then it goes up to 5. So I'm just rambling and talking like an idiot at this point. So let's ditch that. We look at the team stats. You see Maryland dominated every facet here. They dominated in shots. They dominated in shots on cage. Princeton gets the 19 saves. They win that battle. Princeton turns the ball over more than Maryland. Princeton cleared the ball better than Maryland, but that was pretty tight. Just a one clear difference. Ground balls, Maryland smoked them. Face-offs, Maryland smoked them. Weirman did a good job in this game. Man-up opportunities, kind of a wash. And then as we get into the stats here, Princeton, Sam English, 4-0. Chris Brown, who's been, a big scorer for Princeton here, he goes 2-1. They get a little bit of scoring down the roster, not too deep. And then we get into Maryland. Logan Wisnauskas, known quantity number 1. He goes for 4 goals, 2 helpers. Jonathan Donville goes 4-0 in this one. And then you see Maryland kind of filled it out. A bunch of guys with at least 1 point right down deep into the roster here. Donville has been big for Maryland here, and he scores 4 goals in this one off just 5 shots. A hell of a job by him. And then you see the turnovers. Maryland just took care of the ball. Nobody screwed up too badly. Owen Murphy, 2 turnovers, 1 goal. You don't like that, but it happens. Keegan Kahn, very quiet in this game. 4 shots, didn't score. And then we look at the goalie battle, though. McEnany didn't play his greatest game, and Eric Peters played a hell of a game in cage here for Princeton. So I was right. Maryland did end up winning by 5, but to be honest, if it wasn't for Peters, this would have been exactly what I thought, 8 to 10 goal game. So Princeton played admirably in this one. All right, let's get into the overtime. And by overtime, I just mean let's start talking about a bunch of other games here. What are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about Army, New Jersey Tech. We're going to talk about Brown and Vermont. We're going to talk about We won't talk about that one. We're going to talk about Drexel, Albany a little bit. We will talk about Penn State, Yale. I haven't talked about that yet. What is my problem? Towson, Richmond, we already talked about. Let's see what else we got. I'll cover Michigan here just a touch. We're going to talk about Cornell and Lehigh. We're going to talk about Villanova. We won't talk about that. I think I'm going to stop here. I think that's oh yeah. Oh, duh. How could I not talk about this one? This is the first one we're going to talk about here. Jacksonville edges out Denver on the road, and now they turn around and they have to play, I think it's Air Force today, and then I think they play Utah next week or something like that. But Jacob Greiner goes for 6 goals, Dolan 4 helpers, and Walbaum was quietest game he's had, 1-2. But Jacksonville beats Denver 11-9 on the road at Denver. That's huge. Now, one of the predictions I had made in this game was if Jungle Jack Hanna went for at least a hat trick in this game and shot the ball well, that Denver wins this game, and he did do that. I thought that he would kind of end his shooting slump and play tough, but it came at the cost of everybody else shooting the ball like shit right down their roster. They just didn't get shots, and that's been a key thing for Jacksonville so far. Defensively, Jacksonville has looked very good. More importantly, they get back on defense and they don't give up a lot of transition looks overall. So despite Hanna taking 11 shots and sticking 4 of them, which is his best outing of the year so far, Denver still ends up losing this game. The goalie battle, Jack Thompson played really well despite losing 18 saves against those 11 goals against. Luke Milliken, I think Milliken's a Texas kid, 11 saves, 9 goals against. So both goalies played well. Face-off dot, Stathakis ends up splitting with Nathan Knapp, so that's a wash. As we look at Hanna, I already said what he had. I don't really care about that. What I want to look at is Jacksonville here. What did they do overall? That it's hard to tell here, but defensively, did they take the ball away a lot? You got Tucker Garrity here, midfielder, probably a short stick D mid. Three caused turnovers. Dixon Smith, 2 forced turnovers. Colin Hinton, 2 forced turnovers. So yeah, you just see that defense for Jacksonville has been playing tough across the board, and that's a huge win for them. Jacksonville is now 4-1 with wins so far, close loss to Hopkins, and now they've got a 4-game win streak, stringing wins together against Duke, Mercer, Marquette, and now Denver. They have Air Force today. They have Utah this weekend coming up before they go on to an easy stretch here against Bellarmine, UMass Lowell, St. John's. They ought to legitimately win all of these games. They may drop one of these, but we're looking at a Jacksonville team that could legitimately be 9-1 or 8-2 heading into High Point, Richmond, the 2 toughest games that they have left here. So, I mean, a hell of a job so far by Jacksonville as a team, and let's not pretend that Walbaum hasn't been a huge part of that. He has been a huge part of that, the Tufts transfer. So, great things. Great game. Army, New Jersey Tech, and not much to say here. It was a bloodbath. I just wanted to see how Brendan Nickturn did. 3 goals, 4 helpers. Army is going to take on Syracuse in the Dome. That's going to be a hell of a game. It'll be a top 20 matchup anyway by the time the new thing comes out. Aiden Burns goes for 4 goals. So good job. You figured it was going to be a bloodbath. Schuppler and Cage, 11 saves against just 1 goal against, so that's padding his stats a little bit. And then in terms of the face-off dot, Army dominated. Let a bunch of guys take draws. They just wrecked them across the board. So that's it for that one. Brown, Vermont. Now, this one, I started watching this a little bit, and then Brown had a big lead at one point, so I kind of turned the game off, and Vermont ended up just chipping away. It wasn't as close as the score would indicate because Vermont was down by a lot, and then Vermont chipped away, got it to within 2. They end up scoring a goal with about 30 seconds and change left in the game to get within 1. Not enough as Brown ends up winning this game. Devin McLean had a big day, 3-4 off 8 shots. Darian Cook, 3-1, and then you see a bunch of guys right down the list here score. Klosterman, 0-4. McConvey, 3-0. Not good enough here in a game you lost by 1. And it seems to be a lot of teams slow starts, trying to make a comeback and then just falling short in those comeback bids here. Thural had a good game in Cage again for Brown. He had 13 saves. Ryan Cornell, not good enough. He loses the goalie battle to Thural. He just has 9 saves. Face-off dot, Tommy Burke. Gunty, he ended up playing much better than I thought he would. He splits them pretty much with Burke. Burke wins 14 of 27, 52% with 5 GBs, and Gunty ends up going for 13 of 26. and then they end up having, who was this? Tegan Bultman loses one more. Shouldn't have had him take that, but either way, Brown ends up holding off the late Vermont rally to win this one. Drexel versus Albany. I did not watch this game either. Just wanted to see how everything played out. Aiden Cole, 5-1 for Drexel. Jack Mulcahy, 1-4. I just saw a bunch of MASH stuff here, and the name Mulcahy, I know it's not exactly, doesn't translate exactly, but it makes me think of the MASH commercials I've been seeing lately. He goes 1-4. Max Semple, 4-0. Drexel ends up winning this game by 2 for Albany. Jacob Morin, 4-0. Graydon Hogue, 2-2. And, just not good enough here. In terms of the goalie battle, I presume that Drexel fared better, and they did. Ross Blumenthal goes 10 for 10 saves versus 5 goals against over Tommy Heller for Albany, making just 6 saves against 14 goals against. That is not good enough. And then the faceoff battle, surprisingly, Endress for Albany wins 17-25. So, hey, that's a good job for them, and they still can't put it together. Defensively, Albany is, they struggle, and in cage they've been struggling. So Drexel, they improved to 1-2. Albany drops to 0-2. I should have talked about this game much earlier. I may even clip this together and change it up because Penn State, I figured Yale was going to beat. Yale early on doesn't usually wax teams, but I figured Yale was probably going to win this game by anywhere from 3 to 6 goals or so, and it wasn't so here. Yale jumps out to an early 2-0 lead. And, 2-0, a team like Penn State that's been struggling across the board, they go down 2-0. That's kind of like, shit, we suck again. We really do suck because Penn State has been terrible so far this year. One of the worst teams from a big conference so far this season. And then they go off and rattle off 5 straight goals to end up taking a 5-2 lead. They got a heck of a day out of Alaric Phaup, who at one point held Yale scoreless for a span of 33 minutes and 56 seconds. I could have just said about 34 minutes, but once again, information is important. The Penn State defense, they obviously helped greatly over that stretch, looking like a totally different team compared to how they played in their 3 losses so far this season. Senior Braden Peck had 3 caused turnovers. Pup Buono and Jack Posey, they each caused 2 turnovers. The Penn State defense looked incredible against Yale, keeping everybody important for Yale really off the scoreboard. Matt Brandow only puts up 1 goal and a helper on 8 shots for Yale. Once again, though, Phaup going for, 21 saves in the game, I think, or something like that. We'll see here. But Jeb Brenfleck, 3-1 for Penn State. That's a hell of a name. Ethan Long, 0-3. Will Peden, 0-2. So, Penn State gets just enough scoring in the end to win this game. Goalie battle. Phaup won that. 21 saves against just 6 goals against. That is a hell of a stat line. And Jared Paquette, he goes 16 saves versus 10 goals against. Both goalies played very well in this game, but Penn State's defense mixed with Phaup just going off and just being an absolute brick wall in cage. They end up getting the win. Face-off dot, Yale dominated 14-20. Nicholas Ramsey dominates the face-off dot. Doesn't matter because Phaup again stood on his head. The defense got stops when they needed to, and they end up winning this game. I watched a bunch of this game, most of it actually, until it looked like Penn State was going to pull away and win, and then I kind of switched it around. There's just too many good games on overall. Michigan and Cleveland State, 13-5. I was surprised at this one. I've been complaining, saying Michigan hasn't played anybody, and they haven't. If we look at who Michigan has played so far, they beat Bellarmine, they beat Detroit Mercy, they beat Holy Cross. They've literally played like some of the worst teams in Division I, and then Cleveland State puts up a respectable score against them here. Ohio State, oh man, yeah, they got beat decent. Yeah, Cleveland State's a little bit better than I thought. But let's see what we got here. Aiden Mulholland for Michigan goes 1-3. Josh Zawada, quietest game of the season so far for him, 2-1. So Cleveland State did a pretty decent job of bottling guys up, and that's all we're going to talk about. That was a bloodbath. One that I should have also talked about earlier here, Cornell and Lehigh, they played a pretty tough one. I should have talked about this earlier because I had highlights for this one cut up that we're going to roll here, and you can watch it. Pretty solid game. CJ Kirst, he goes 2-1 on the day. Spencer Wertheim goes 0-2. Piatelli 2-0, dodged the ball pretty well. Piatelli took a boatload of shots, though. Shot the ball pretty poorly. And Scott Cole, Tommy Schelling, 3-0 and 0-2 respectively. Not good enough. In cage, Chase Erlin, 15 saves against just 5 goals against. He wins that goalie battle, and Cornell wins the game. Sisselberger, got the better of Cornell overall in the faceoff dot, but not by a big enough margin here. He wins 10-18, but Angelo Petrakis for Cornell, he goes 8-16. He splits them, he wins 50% against Sisselberger's 56%. And then they had this Silos here take a couple. He lost 2 for Cornell. So in the end, though, Lehigh, Cornell, that ends up being a decent game, although Cornell gets the big win. Ohio State, they beat Harvard. 17-12, not a close game. Jack Myers goes for 11 points, 5 goals, and 6 helpers in this win. Jackson Reed goes 4-0, and then they just kind of filled it in. Griffin Hughes 1-2, Kobe Smith 3-0, Knox 2-0. Ohio State is proving they are legit as hell this season. Great comeback for them between this season and last season. In terms of the goalie battle, Caton Johnson, neither goalie had a great game. He wins the battle, though. 10 saves against 12 goals against. Inacio, once again, dominates the faceoff dot, 20 of 29. I think that might be one of his lowest winning percentages, 69% so far here. But that's going to always factor in your favor a great deal. So Inacio's he's been dominating in terms of numbers, even against some good guys. So we'll see how that goes. Do we need to talk about anything else? I guess BU, Binghamton University, they win in overtime over Lafayette. 13-12. Nothing to write home about. Let's see if we had some crazy goalie play. Yep, Teddy Dolan, sure as shit. 19 saves against 12 goals against. So he wins the goalie battle. Binghamton wins the game. Face-off dot, pretty well split overall. So that happened. Do we have anything else we need to talk about? Yeah, you know what I want to talk about here? Lemoyne lacrosse schedule. 2022. Last thing we're going to talk about here today. We're at about our 40-minute mark. That's what I've been trying to keep them at about 40 minutes. That Mercyhurst game that I previewed against Lemoyne ends up being a hell of a game here. Mercyhurst strikes first. They take a 1-up lead, and then Lemoyne answers back. They go on a 3-goal run. It's 3-1. And then as we kind of see here, Lemoyne keeps the lead through most of this game. We get back to 7-6 before Mercyhurst. Miles Ham actually ties it up for Mercyhurst at 7s. And then Lemoyne ends up going on a 2-goal run. Mercyhurst answers, and Lemoyne answers. And Lemoyne ends up winning the game 10-9. One of the keys of this game that I had said here was that at the faceoff dot, Mercyhurst, Sean Doran had to dominate this game, and he didn't. They end up splitting the faceoffs 50-50. He goes 10 of 20 in terms of the win column, and Sam Curry ends up going 11 of 22. So both teams went 11 of 22 at the faceoff dot, and if Doran could have just edged out a couple more, then we got a different ball game here, and it may have gone Mercyhurst's way, but that key of the game ended up going in Lemoyne's favor by splitting them. And then as we look at the goalie battle, only played tough. 16 saves against 10 goals. So it was, he kind of made up for some of the possession disparity, because I think if he doesn't play that well, obviously this game gets spread a little bit more. But he wins the goalie battle, but the face-off battle, even though it was split 50-50, that ends up being won by Lemoyne. So Lemoyne pulls it out. So that's it, guys. I'm done. I will be back on Thursday for the audio-only preview show. And that'll be audio only anywhere where you get podcasts. And then that's pretty much it. We're going to try to do every Saturday now. We're going to try to do that Ballin' Out segment right after, most of the games end, covering about 4 or 5 plays from the weekend. In this case, I went heavy on Asher Nolting because he had 3 pretty sweet goals, just in terms of just the dude as a beast and a battler. So we'll do that. So that's going to be the new added segment. So we have the audio only preview show on Thursdays. We'll have Saturdays, kind of Saturday afternoon, we'll do the Ballin' Out segment. That's about a 3 to 5 minute video where I just ramble through a couple of highlights that were sweet that I saw. And then Sunday, today, we do the big weekend review show. And then we'll probably add a 4th segment here at some point, but so far, so good, and that's it. So as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Be sure to go to wherever you get your podcasts on Thursday to listen to the weekend preview show. And that's all. Hoost is out.